Everything Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kim.
And you're unwell today.
I am, and it's entirely self-inflicted, and I'm sorry, but I'm not going to get much more exuberant than this.
You did terrify all the cats with that roar.
Yeah.
Which I heard from a clip from another room.
Yeah, if you want to hear the noise that busted my larynx, I think it's part 9 of my Danganronpa 2 Let's Play on YouTube, on the Avascamber 42 YouTube channel. I do all the voices for the characters, and one particular very gruff JoJo's Bizarre Adventure-ish character gave a roar, which I did not once, but twice to make a point, and now I can't talk.
Yeah, it was loud. It was noticeable.
Yeah, I'm sure the neighbours wondered what the hell was going on, and at least I terrified every cat in the neighbourhood.
Did? They were not happy with that.
But yeah, I'm suffering today, and I deserve no sympathy.
Entirely self-inflicted. Well, I don't think we've got any news, unless you have anything.
No, I don't have anything today. Twitter's been quiet lately.
Okay. Well, we arrived in season 8, so one thing we can get to before we get to anything else is the changed intro sequence, and I'm not sure if it's going to change again next week.
No, we've added a Doggett and some weird childbirthy kind of imagery.
Yeah, and Scully's eye replaces the generic eye we used to have in the intro sequence.
Oh, is it actually Scully's eye?
It looks like Gillian Anderson's eye anyway.
With Mulder falling into it?
Yeah. Well, no, after that, the eye blink before it comes out, the truth is out there.
Oh, okay, that one.
Yeah, that one. And the profile, the actual agent IDs have been updated since Mulder. That's a newer photo of Mulder and a newer photo of Scully.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
You were more observant than I was. I noticed that Doggett's appeared now as well.
Doggett is now crammed in, so it's now David Duchovny, Gillian Anderson, and Robert Patrick, which is quite interesting given David Duchovny was meant to be leaving the series at this point, but we'll get to that.
I believe that was the entire point, as we discussed last time with Requiem, is that it could have been a complete ending to the X-Files, but they wanted to leave enough open because Fox were keen to make a new season.
Yeah, it turns out that David Duchovny is still on set. We'll get to that.
In fact, he's in this two-parter quite a lot, despite being abducted.
He is. So, but yes, the intro sequence, for the first time since the X-Files intro sequence, because you had the brief pilot one, which was kind of like just the logo, and then we've had the same intro sequence for 7 seasons, and now we've changed it, which is just weird and confusing. But anyway, we should probably talk about Within, the season 8 opener. Directed by Kim Manners, written by Chris Carter. Carter!
And there it goes.
And first broadcast on the 5th of November 2000. So, this is a kind of change-up. For the first time in the X-Files, we have a new regular cast member coming in.
Mm-hmm.
More regular than Mitch Pileggi, Alden Goodman, or Sergei Spokerman, or Krychek, or anyone else. This is a new main character who's actually going to be with us for the next few seasons.
Yep.
So this is Robert Patrick, who plays John Doggett. He's been in quite a lot of stuff, as you can imagine, and some of it I was not expecting.
Okay.
So his first kind of real prominent role before the one you're thinking of was Die Hard 2.
Well, of course he is, yeah.
Then he followed that with Terminator 2.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same year, he was in Wayne's World, playing not quite the same character, but definitely meant to make you think of the same character.
Yeah.
And Last Action Hero, where he might have done it again.
Yep, he did.
So there was a possibility in that time period where he was going to get typecast just referencing Terminator 2 for the rest of his days.
It should probably be noted that he was cast in the X-Files because of Terminator 2 as well. They were hoping to bring up the demographic of the 18 to 35-year-old men.
Oh my god, that's terrible.
And they succeeded. There was a 10% increase in that age bracket watching the X-Files following John Doggett's introduction.
Wow. Oh no, I respected that.
Yeah.
I can't help but feel that in Terminator 2, he was also cast because he was more like how the Terminator was conceived.
It was originally supposed to be Lance Hendrickson, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he was meant to be much more subdued, much kind of lurking in the background kind of person, much more stealthy person than Arnold, who just burst into places and shot you.
True.
So Robert Patrick is kind of like a return to the old ways.
When you think of him, you do think of the T-1000.
Yeah. It's such an iconic role, and also quite early in his career, and he really did do quite a lot with it. He was also in Double Dragon.
Yeah, he was the baddie.
Yeah. Copland. And interestingly for us, he was in a film called Fire in the Sky, which I've never seen. Or I've seen bits of it, it freaked me the hell out, and I've never wanted to watch it.
So it's Aliens, then?
It is Aliens. It was based on an alleged true-life account of someone who's abducted by aliens, went missing for 3 days and turned up dehydrated and traumatized.
Okay.
And that held for a few years, and then someone came forward and said, no, we faked it. He's been hiding out in the woods for the last 2 days.
Oh. Pity.
Yeah, it was a like high-profile one where basically people saw him get attacked by this weird energy beam in the middle of the woods, and they fled in terror, and the guy got grabbed when they were away. And Robert Patrick plays his best friend who sort of ran away and then came back for him.
Okay.
And found he was gone.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, I'm not watching it. I've seen one bit of it, and I do not go well with that one. Also in From Dusk Till Dawn 2.
I keep forgetting that's a film.
There's Just Dawn 3, which is a prequel.
I didn't even know there was a 3.
There's a 3.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I think I've seen 2 once, and it wasn't that memorable, and 3 is so far off the path by that point. Spy Kids. The Men Who Stare at Goats.
Okay.
I still quite like. He was in Lost, which I didn't know about. But the one that surprised me was he's in Avatar: The Last Airbender.
The animation?
The animation, he's a voice.
Of?
No one I recognise, but he's in there. He's also in True Blood, the one we saw him in quite a lot. Oh, keep on coming back to is the one in Community, where he's in there for 30 seconds at most?
Yeah, he's barely in it. He
was in The Dig, the video game, where he was the main character.
Okay.
And he's in Elite Dangerous.
Fair enough.
Just going to normal guest stars, we have Kirk B. Waller, who played Gene Crane. So I think this is the slightly suspect member of John Doggett's FBI team.
Oh, the kind of red-headed guy.
Yeah, we'll get to him. He was in Minority Report, The Ring 2, Resident Evil Extinction, It Keeps Coming Back, but Dark Skies. And Sliders.
Okay.
And it's a shame that this is her only film role as Christine Firkins, who played Thea Sprecher. So, name doesn't mean anything to you. This is Gibson Praise's friend.
Oh, the deaf girl.
The deaf girl. She is deaf in real life.
Oh, okay.
She's only got 1 credit on Wikipedia, despite showing up in the X-Files, which is for Speed 2.
Oh, okay.
And then there's Brian Greenberg, who played The Order Taker. I'm not entirely sure who that was, but...
It's a great title.
Yep. Who was in The Tick, the Amazon version.
So do you have a synopsis for Within?
I do, from Wikipedia. Scully has been deeply distraught since Mulder was abducted by aliens. One morning, which I will query because I'm pretty sure this is meant to be the next day, per as of everything else that happens, she arrives in her partner's office to find it being searched by FBI agents. Scully learns that the Bureau's newly promoted deputy director, Alvin Kersh, has launched a manhunt in a search for Mulder. The investigation is being led by Special Agent John Doggett. Scully and Skinner are taken to the task force field office to be questioned. Despite protests, they would be the most qualified to lead the manhunt themselves. As Skinner is being interrogated, Scully is accosted by an unnamed person who starts asking her about Mulder. When Scully finds out that this man is in fact John Doggett, she angrily throws waters in his face and leaves. Back at her apartment, Scully runs a background check on Doggett on a computer, learning about his background as a former NYPD detective. She feels sick and leaves the computer and later calls on her mother, Margaret. When she realizes her phone is tapped, she looks out the window to see if anyone is out there. She angrily calls Doggett to protest him monitoring her phone conversations, which he seems genuinely surprised about. She also notices the mysterious man and runs into the hall to pursue him, but meets her landlord, Mr. Coburn, who claims he had seen Mulder. When Scully returns to her apartment, she discovers her laptop has been stolen. Meanwhile, Skinner visits the lone gunmen who are monitoring UFO activity in the US in hopes of tracking down Mulder. Skinner later finds out that someone has used Mulder's FBI pass to gain access to the X-Files, and that the Bureau task force considers him the main suspect. Meanwhile, Doggett has gathered enough evidence to track Mulder's whereabouts before his so-called abduction, discovering that Mulder was dying and had his name engraved in his family's gravestone to mark his death in 2000. Later on, more evidence of high UFO activity in Clifton, Arizona is found by the lone gunman. Concurrently, Doggett receives information about Gibson Praise when someone slips the file under his door. Scully and Skinner leave for Arizona without giving any of their information to Doggett. Doggett believes that to find Mulder they must find the whereabouts of Praise. They locate him at a remote school for the deaf in the town of Flemington. By the time Doggett's task force arrives, Gibson has already escaped via a window, but has been run into and is now being taken to a desert hilltop with another person, Agent Mulder.
Thank you.
It's always difficult to know how to talk about this episode, given it's such a... There's a finality to the previous episode, and this one is a new start, and you're kind of... Mulder's presence makes things weird, or should we say Mulder in inverted commas, because we're pretty sure who this guy is.
Yeah, and it's pretty clear it's not Mulder.
Yes. We're pretty sure this is a shapeshifter thing. I mean, we're going to get into it without, because there's a conversation in without which feels like a screamingly obvious one you should have had 5 seasons ago, at least. But we'll leave that for the moment. I don't think it's not a bad introduction to Doggett. I kind of like the low-key way he first meets Scully, as much as it feels manipulative as well.
That first scene where he meets Scully and she throws the glass of water in his face apparently was one of the favourite scenes in the entire run of the series of Robert Patrick, Tom Braidwood, and Kim Manners.
Oh, wow, okay.
They were both really taken by this kind of introduction to a new long-standing cast member and how Scully reacts to him.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea it's a more fraught initial encounter than it was with Mulder.
It's because the dynamics changed. Essentially, Scully is in the Mulder seat now.
Yeah, and I do have some thoughts about that, and it's rewatching it again, and especially watching it in conjunction with the Requiem. You go, I understand why you've pivoted so Scully is becoming the believer, or at least more open to more extreme and weird possibilities, and Doggett is being set up as the hard skeptic.
He's an even harder skeptic than Scully, technically, because he's kind of a knee-jerk skeptic. It's not like Scully, who's the kind of Sherlock Holmes when you've eliminated the impossible skeptic.
Yeah, and also who bought into all Mulder's nonsense in the pilot, and she got really excited till he said, no, you have to justify this, and she calmed down. But I do think on rewatching it, it's Scully's shift into the believer role kind of works for the series. At the same time, there's been no build-up. This has been... She wasn't even... If she'd seen the UFO, I could have bought this. But she wasn't, so it's just... She has just woken up the next morning and has now decided that she's going to be Mulder.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a problem.
I also think you see it increasingly through both of these episodes, in fact. The fact that she can't put herself in Doggett's position even though she's been there.
Yeah, that's weird.
Because she very much talks down to him as the, well, you skeptic who can't accept this. It's Scully, it's taken you 7 seasons to get this far.
Yeah. And given the fact that you saw an alien fetus in the Erlenmeyer flask, and those literal shapeshifters...
You'll go as far as she experienced Victor Toombs in episode 2 of the series.
3.
Sorry, is it 3?
It's 3.
Alright, yeah, alright. You still, same point applies. You have experienced somebody who can dislocate all of his joints, slip through heating systems, and has lived hundreds of years by consuming human livers and entering a state of hibernation.
Yeah. And the Fluke Man, the thing you have all the scientific evidence for. Even that Invisible Man you had 2 episodes ago, which you lost, but you still had, you did all the tactile stuff. I mean, I keep coming back to it, but I do think the film really should change her mindset, because in that, even if she can justify a lot of other things, she has to reconcile, no, I was in the Antarctic for some reason. Why was I in the Antarctic with no clothes?
But still, as we were saying, it has taken us 7 years to get to this position as the true believer.
Yeah, and it's too abrupt. We needed 7... I think that's the evidence that 7 was they ran out of ideas and then they had their second wind. 7 should have been the slow tipping of scales.
To be fair, it's always kind of depend on the writer, because Scully is sometimes more receptive than others.
This is true.
It entirely depends on who's writing her at any given time.
Yeah, and it was like some of the newer writers in 5 and 6 did such a bad job with her, because she was so hardline skeptical, it was just unbearable.
I think she's harder to write than Mulder, to be fair. Because with Mulder, you know that Mulder will believe and defend absolute lunatic ideas with zero evidence, although he's usually right.
Up to there is a constraint though. Up to religious.
Up to religious.
If it's religious, he's out.
But Scully is a lot more of an annoyance character.
This is true.
She's a lot more complicated. There's a lot more of a kind of complexity of her beliefs and how comfortable she feels kind of admitting to believing things, that I think that writers sometimes struggle with her balance. I
can see that. Yeah, I think that's very fair. Yeah, we've done no groundwork for this. I mean, one thing as well is both, I think it's actually primarily this episode rather than without, is the sudden retconning in of a lot of stuff that we've got to put into place that just was not even hinted at before. So Mulder's been dying for the last season, apparently.
Ever since he caught, I think the thing I called last time, alien encephalitis.
Yeah.
I don't know how else you'd describe it, that kind of brain condition he had.
Yeah, so that's been retconned to be a lot worse than it was, and now he's been taking mysterious trips that Scully didn't know about, medical tests.
I think we needed some more sense of deterioration. I mean, at least give him a cough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's sort of, you'll find people who'll defend retcons to the death, and people who just won't accept them. These are bad retcons. These are retcons that just sort of fundamentally shift an entire season. You go, wait, but how was that true?
We do it with Scully quite a lot, though, is she often has these kind of episodes following her abduction where she'll get faint or disorientated or have a nosebleed.
Yeah.
That's what you need with Mulder, just some kind of idea that he's got some underlying medical condition.
Yeah. Well, I think that feeds back to the whole, they didn't think they were getting another season. They thought this was it. And as much as, Spotnet said they got a second wind partway through, but apparently not early enough to start saying, we need to start putting things in to build this up.
No, I think it was something that was always in the hands of Fox executives, so they might have wanted a second season. But until Fox said, oh, yeah, we want one, they weren't sure, and so they had to always leave it on that kind of slightly awkward ending where they could continue it.
Yeah.
I thought one of the interesting critical reviews I read that, I like looking at reviews at the time this came out, because overwhelmingly critics loved this two-parter. But one made an interesting point. It was Robert Sherman and Lars Pearson, who we've mentioned before. They wrote the Wanting to Believe: A Critical Guide to the X-Files, Millennium and Lone Gunman book.
Yeah.
They kind of commented on the fact, I think they still gave it a pretty positive review, but they felt that bringing back Gibson Praise derailed what they were trying to do with the series. Because over Requiem, we've seen them trying to essentially scorch the earth. Yeah. So we've removed Mulder, we've removed the Cancer Man, we've removed the entire conspiracy now. Yeah. We've previously lost Mulder's mother in that season as well. So, we're getting rid of all the old things. And then you bring back Gibson Praise. Thus kind of, not spoiling, but damaging all this fresh start thing you're trying to do.
That's very astute. I like that. I mean, we've made the point that they've already sort of fouled up their attempt to do a fresh start with, you killed the Shadow Syndicate, and then you didn't know what to do with it, and then you've got Cancerman saying, let's start it all again. It's like, no.
Yeah, it does feel like every time we've tried to give the X-Files a fresh start, we've just been unable to let the past go. So it's never a true fresh start. It's always got this baggage behind it.
Yeah, and Gibson Praise is an issue. I mean, I think, again, they've forgotten what he was, given the whole...
Well, they've forgotten where we left him for a start, because we left him in a nuclear power plant, and now he's a student in the school for the deaf.
True. You could, his same state, though, you can kind of make the whole, he could somehow claim to have been homeless or something and been taken in by this.
And apparently is pretending to be deaf.
Yeah, which is, presumably you can do that. That's the thing, though. So we've specified...
Where's his alien gone?
Yeah, where's the alien? What happened to that thing? And the interesting point, though, I thought you touched on there as well, is when you said they were scorched in the earth, which is what the alien bounty hunter apparently is doing in these episodes.
He's trying to remove all of these old abductees.
Yeah, and, I mean, we went over that with Requiem of, my God, it's so lucky he crashed in that place. And when I was editing it together, I was thinking, well, we didn't actually qualify that. Is it ambiguous if it's a crash or not? It's like, no, there's a fire in the middle of the woods, and we can see they can touch down the spaceships without causing a disturbance if they want to. So if there's a fire in the woods, it was there because something went wrong.
To be fair, a bit like the Starship Enterprise, that thing doesn't look like it should be able to land on the ground.
No. And, starting into darkness remains frustrating with the whole, you don't submerge that ship. That ship doesn't go underwater. What are you doing? You also don't build it on a planet's surface. My God, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
I digress, though you could also say the same thing about Rogue One, because a lot of people got very upset about that bit of the Star Destroyer in the atmosphere. It's hovering over the city and they're taking...
That's a good point.
Yeah, those kind of ships aren't meant... No one anticipates them going into an atmosphere. They stay in space for a reason.
Yeah.
That's why you have all the other craft to go down to the ground, because if you can land the things, what are you doing?
You're equivalent of the Starbug.
Yeah, you don't park Red Dwarf on a planet. Oh my God, have they done that in the most recent series?
No idea.
We haven't
you
seen
think
it for
would
years.
crush the planet if they landed the Red Dwarf on anything?
It's 5 miles long. It's not going to be that bad.
Not that bad. 5-mile object landing on a planet.
Well, if it touches down gently, we're getting off track. If it touches down gently, I think you'll be okay. You might cause some serious damage. So, I can kind of see the whole, we want to clear things up, because that kind of feeds on from Requiem. Though Scully does say one of the most genuinely baffling lines in the X-Files. It's like, why don't people believe in aliens? Because of all this evidence, it's because they're taking it all away. It's like, are you sure about this, Scully? Because that was the Shadow Syndicate were doing that before. That was them. That wasn't the aliens coming down and cleaning up after you. And they've also waited 7 years to raid the X-Files offices when they could have walked in at literally any point and stolen everything.
Apparently they were more scared of Mulder than you imagined.
Yeah. Is he like, I don't want to do it, but Dumbledore in Harry Potter? They refused to attack the FBI headquarters because Mulder's there.
To be fair, They did kind of infer this about Mulder very early on in the X-Files, is the fact that it would be too dangerous to martyr him and stuff like that. Mulder has always been deemed a threat.
I know. Well, we can also get into that a bit, but I don't understand. They like that as a line, as an excuse. They never made clear how that was going to function. It's like, most people don't know who Mulder is. You can't martyr someone who's that obscure.
At the same time, people have read, and it's going to be something we have to look at in this season as a whole. So, these last two seasons of the X-Files, well, before the revival, people have made a lot of kind of Christian analogies against them.
Oh,
so,
okay.
a general theme of the episode is going to be whether or not humanity is worth redeeming. And also, there are themes that run through, apparently, of things like sickness, suffering, and rebirth.
Yes.
Which you will see again and again through plots in the next two seasons. So, we're going back to biogenesis here, where we commented before about when Mulder, essentially, they infer he's been hybridized in that episode.
Yeah.
But they have him in the very, very messianic, kind of nailed to a cross sort of position. And you see it more in this episode. So we've got Mulder kind of spread-eagled. There are screws through his wrists like the nails on the cross. He's got that weird kind of Hellraiser-y Cenobite thing around his face. It's like a crown of thorns. So we are sticking with our Mulder as the Messiah sort of imagery here.
Yeah.
Do you want to know some interesting things I found out about the special effects, particularly for the bit that I keep calling the Cenobite chair?
Yeah, okay.
The Cenobite chair effect itself is created by a makeup artist who is very well known called Matthew W. Mungle. He actually won an Academy Award for doing the kind of makeup effects on I think it was 1992 Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh, cool.
Which is also a very good film.
Yeah, I like that one.
But interesting that they've got someone of high caliber to do that. But also, you know, that whole scene in the chair, does it remind you of another famous science fiction movie?
I'm going to guess you're going to go for Clockwork Orange here.
I am not.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
Think Space Jockey.
Space Jockey. Oh, okay. So it's reminiscent of Alien.
Yeah, but more so than that.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, they wanted it not to look like a clean high-tech spaceship. They wanted more of that kind of murky, chiseled metal that looks like rock kind of look to it. But the actual backdrop, they have lit badly so you can't see it in the episode, but is the backdrop of the spaceship from Alien. They managed to get the actual set backing, set it up in the background and badly light it to kind of create that effect.
Oh my... I don't even know what to say to that.
I know you're a huge fan of Alien. I thought you'd appreciate this one.
I appreciate it to a point, but I kind of feel that that's really weird because the aliens up to this point, they have shiny technology because that's the alien thing. I mean, that's fine, but at least be consistent because in Alien, yeah, the aliens are weird biomechanical things. In the X-Files, not so much. Wow, okay. I was going to say, there is a kind of a get-out clause, although I think Gibson Praise actually just wrecks it, of this could be Scully's weird fantasy dream nightmare about what Mulder's going through. But Gibson Praise, at least in Without, seems to indicate that, yeah, Mulder's actually going through all of this for real. This is what's happening to him. Got to wonder why the aliens are bothering him at this point.
Those kind of alien vivisections we saw when Scully was abducted previously were scary, but this is a whole new level of brutality. You know, it's almost like Saw-ish torture scene.
Yes, I would agree with you. I mean, I don't understand why it's got so grisly. Because even Dwayne Barry was more abstract than this. This is very much the Saw aesthetic of put someone in a muddy cave and then cut their chest open for some reason.
I thought in particular the bit where they put that drill through the roof of his mouth.
Yeah.
It's like the final bit of a Saw trap where the person's failed and you're just waiting for their gruesome demise.
Yeah. It's like, you guys have lasers. We watched you laser Dwayne Barry. You don't need to use a drill.
Assuming these are the same guys.
Well, yeah.
We did have the inference, as we argued extensively in Ascension, that might have been the government. It might not have even been the aliens.
That's true. And you don't know that Dwayne Barry's memories are real, but the whole continuity is so convoluted and confused by this point. But, I mean, to go back to the original point, though, it's still Scully saying, oh, yes, no one believes in aliens because they've stolen all the evidence. It's that Scully, what are you talking about? This is nonsense. This doesn't make any sense. I understand that someone raided the FBI offices and apparently the alien bounty hunter cleaning things up, like stealing Mulder's computer, stealing Scully's computer. Like, but what's he taking away that they've got? What could they possibly have? Other than Scully has those hieroglyphics from Six Extinction. Still? We think?
They were really, really interested in the file on Eddie Van Blunt.
Yeah, well, we're going to put in Andy Van Blunt because we're going to bring him up in without, I think. It's kind of nice to see Skinner be a believer. Kind of. You kind of feel like he should do, given his cancer. He's been hanging out with Cancer Man for that long time, and Cancer Man said he believed them about tombs. And it's why that hasn't sort of rushed off from Skinner, really.
Skin Man's kind of inferred in the past that he does believe them, but he can't do anything.
Yeah, but there's something about seeing the ship has changed him. He's now actually less guarded than he has been.
I think it's because they've also lost Mulder essentially on his watch. He
It's
was
true.
sent there to assist Mulder, and there was nothing he could do.
Yeah. And Mulder just vanished, and then the ship went off. I like Skinner hanging out with the lone gunman now. That's kind of a nice, weird camaraderie they've got.
Yeah.
And their attempt to sort of track the spaceship. Although, you do have to wonder to a point of, they say they're working out where the ship is going next, because they worked out how to track the UFO across the United States. And they figured out it's going to be in Arizona. And so Skinner and Scully rush over to Arizona. What do they think they're going to do? It's a technologically advanced race who have literal cloaking fields and acid blood, which I realised we forgot to mention in Requiem. It's always been kind of acidic and kind of corrosive, but I don't think it left that kind of hole in the floor in the past. I think you just found burns, not...
It definitely left burns previously.
Yeah, but that's kind of like the blood in Alien.
Yeah.
Which, you know, if left to its own devices, will dissolve through everything.
Well, it's been proven the blood in Alien will go through multiple floors if left to its own devices. It
Yeah.
is very, very corrosive.
So I do feel they got confused about that as well, because the alien bound into blood seems to be not quite that potent, but getting there. Which it wasn't before, it was kind of just a toxic.
I will keep arguing with the alien bounty hunter that we don't know he's the same as the rest of them.
We don't.
There is that one throwaway line, I think, back in Colony, or possibly Endgame, where the Samantha clone says that he is different in some way, and we've never, ever got to the bottom of what makes him different.
True, I think they've forgotten that, but I think also we can't trust anything anyone's ever said to us, because Samantha was dead at the time. Let's not let go of that one.
Things we can't trust in the X-Files, anything that literally every character, except possibly Scully, has said over the series.
Pretty much, yeah. I think anything the aliens have said, because the alien bounty hunter told Mulder point blank that Samantha was alive when she'd been dead for 10 years. Or if not more. Was it 10 years? It was some stupid ranges that ultimately, when she was 13, wasn't she?
15, I think they said when she died.
And
Mulder's now in his early 30s.
Yeah, so it's got
I'm not sure how much younger Samantha is to Mulder. There's not many years in it, I don't think.
No, so we're talking almost 2 decades. She's been dead by the time he said she's still alive because you die now. Carter! Anyway. So, yeah, as much as I appreciate the setup for the episode, I don't understand what Scully thinks they're going to do if they find the ship, other than beg for him back nicely. Which, I don't know if you've talked to the aliens recently, Scully, but they don't tend to negotiate. They tend to just take what they want. And then we get Gibson Praise, who, as you said, it's like the last vestige of the old world. We shouldn't have brought him back. He causes a lot of problems.
I think really by this point there are very few bits of the old conspiracy you can bring back other than Gibson Praise. Because we've either resolved or killed almost every part of it.
We could drag Krychek and Marita in. They are still going, somehow.
The only other thing would be that kind of bee farm in Tunisia, I think. But other than that...
Oh yeah, Strughold's place. Strughold. We haven't seen Strughold for a very long time. He wasn't incinerated as far as I could tell.
Not that we're aware of.
No. What's happened to Strughold? Demand answers. You forgot about Strughold, didn't you? Do we have anything else for Within, or shall we get to the other half of this? Because there's some...
It's hard to talk about it. It'll be easier as a whole, I think, if we just get the preamble out the way.
Yeah. So, as far as I could tell, there are absolutely no changes to the guest cast, other than David Duchovny's in without a lot more. But I actually completely forgot to write down the details of the episode. Hang on. Without, directed by Kim Manners, written by Chris Carter. Carter! And first broadcast on the 12th of November 2000. Yeah, no changes to the guest cast, as far as I can tell. Everyone is present and correct, as you might imagine. Would you like to give us a synopsis of Without?
Sure. This episode picks up exactly where Within leaves off, with Doggett having cornered Mulder and Praise at the edge of a very tall cliff. Doggett convinces Mulder to release Praise, who runs off by himself. However, before Doggett can apprehend Mulder, he intentionally walks backwards off the edge of the precipice and apparently falls to his death several stories below. However, when Doggett and the rest go to retrieve Mulder's body, all they find is footprints showing that he moved away from the scene at a sprint. Scully and Skinner arrive on scene, and Scully quickly realises that Mulder has to be an alien bounty hunter who has obviously been sent to retrieve Gibson Praise. In the meantime, the alien bounty hunter returns to the school and continues searching for Gibson Praise, who has not returned. Scully, on looking around the school, follows Praise's schoolmate, a young deaf girl called Thea, through the desert and eventually to a hidden underground bunker. Here she finds Praise, who has managed to escape to this hiding place but has badly broken his leg. Scully applies first aid but realises she is unable to get him to hospital without a car, and asks him to wait for her in safety, and she promises she will return for him later. Doggett tries to explain the events on the cliff to a not very receptive Kersh. However, Skinner points out the fact that Kersh has just put him on this case to set him up for a fall. Doggett is highly respected within the FBI, and many people think he's in line to become the director one day. However, writing a report that talks about mysterious disappearances and aliens will absolutely destroy his career, as it has previously done for Mulder and Scully. The alien bounty hunter returns to the school, under the disguise of Scully, and attacks one of the other FBI agents, an Agent Lando. However, while he is doing so, Skinner arrives with a real Scully. They apprehend the alien, but it manages to get away. After a very tense scene in which Scully and Skinner both doubt each other is who they say they are, they manage to ascertain the fact that they are both real people and head out into the desert to get Praise to hospital. However, we see that they are being watched by Thea, and we are led to presume that this Thea may actually be the alien bounty hunter spying on them. They arrive in the desert to find that Praise is feverish and getting worse. However, Praise does tell Scully that he can sense that Mulder is close by in the desert, so Skinner leaves to get him to hospital, leaving Scully behind. As Scully searches the nearby desert for Mulder, she sees a very bright light in the sky, but it's quickly revealed to be Doggett following her inside a helicopter. Doggett reveals that his entire team has been following them, which means that Skinner is likely compromised if everybody knows where Gibson Praise is. Doggett insists that they travel together to the hospital, and Scully accepts. They arrive there to find two other FBI agents waiting, who assure them that Praise is safe and nothing has happened. However, as they check his room, they discover that both he and Skinner has vanished. Scully leaves to search the hospital for Praise, while Doggett stays in an attempt to find the intruder. Scully quickly finds Praise hiding in a room with Skinner, who claims that he is protecting the boy and unsure who he can now trust after they were attacked. However, when Doggett checks the ceiling space unknown to Scully in the previous room, he discovers Skinner's unconscious body, clearly badly burnt by the alien blood. Scully realises at the last moment, as the alien bounty hunter in Skinner's form attacks her, that he isn't who he's claiming to be. Scully manages to shoot him and luckily kills him with one shot. As Scully recovers in hospital from the ordeal, Doggett reports to Kersh and is assigned to the X-Files full-time, working alongside Scully. In the meantime, we see that Mulder is still held in captivity in the Cenobite chair. He is being experimented on and tortured by 6 other alien bounty hunters.
Dun dun dun. Thank you. Skinner finally articulates the thing we've been banging on about for 5 seasons now, which is how can you trust literally anyone in the world now you know the existence of the alien bounty hunter?
I'm surprised we have not got to this sooner.
I'm actually flat out flabbergasted we haven't done this sooner.
Especially after we've dealt with Eddie Blunt in the same kind of situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that when Doggett presses Scully for what the explanation could be, and she says, I've seen things, and then kind of occasionally admits it's alien, she could say, you don't want to mention small potatoes, where you did see this happen.
On a normal human.
Yeah, completely terrestrially. It was a genetic fluke, but people can do this. They can't generally get up and walk away from the fall, but they can shapeshift.
See, I'm going to give the outside reference of the ever-popular anime and manga One Piece. So there is a character earlier on in One Piece called Bon Clay, who has the ability to kind of change himself to look perfectly like anyone he's touched.
Yeah.
The One Piece cast realised that literally anyone in their midst could be Bon Clay at any time, so they all mark themselves in a way that each of them will know, but Bon Clay cannot see it visibly, therefore they can quickly check to see if the person is who they say they are.
Yeah, that works.
Why have we not adopted something like this?
It's a very good question. And also, even if you want tension, you could then sort of, and there's that quirk, isn't there, when if you sort of ask someone that, watch where they first look, because it's the Sherlock Holmes thing, isn't it? The first place you glance when something's threatened.
Yeah.
So you can even use that as a way of figuring out in advance when someone else will have asked to your mark or something. This is the kind of paranoid thing they should have done yonks ago and didn't. And it just, as long as it's not a conspiracy episode, no one worries about the shapeshifters.
Yeah.
The other thing that just occurred to me was, I know like that thing that Samantha said, who we can't trust.
Yeah.
Of the alien bounty hunter is special. As far as we can tell, though, they could all shapeshift because Jeremiah Smith was not a bounty hunter and he could just be anyone he wanted to be.
And they can all be killed by that specific damage to a certain part of their neck. But as with staking a vampire, that would also kill a human, so...
Yeah. They don't dissolve into green goo, though.
No, that's also the clue.
I was thinking about that as well, and I want to call foul a bit on that, given that I thought the setup in Endgame, when they tried to do that with Skinner and the sniper, was that, yeah, Samantha tells you this is how it works, but you actually need the ice pick to do it. It just feels odd that you can actually do it with a gunshot, because that doesn't... Because they spent so long looking for that wretched tool in various episodes. If you can replicate that with literally any object going through that part of the neck, why do you need to bother with it? So, I'm going to say we've forgotten how the ice picks work.
True.
Also, this episode is boring.
I think we're going back to the old issue. We've spoken about this for a while, even back in like Colony and Endgame and the episodes that are very good. Is that sometimes the X-Files has this idea that's not quite long enough to cover 2 episodes, but is slightly too long to cover 1.
Yeah.
So we have to pad it.
Well, I think contrast it to Requiem, which was definitely too much crammed into 1 episode. But if you'd stretched Requiem out, you would have actually run the same problem you've got with these 2 episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely pacing issues, and there's a whole load of bits that stop making sense. Because you noted as well, like, Gibson Praise runs away from the school and hides out in this bunker in the desert. We're going to not ask, where did the bunker come from? How did you cover it over again with all those rocks and soil?
That's the bit that bothers me, because Thea has literally disappeared out of Scully's sight for all of 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And yet has managed to go down into this bunker, which doesn't seem to have any other entrances, yet somehow completely cover over the entrance from the top.
Yeah. And how on earth did anyone find that in the first place? Because I don't believe that Gibson could have built it himself.
Gibson is psychic, so it only takes him being near someone who knows its existence, though.
True. But we do have to sort of say Scully's astonishing coincidence of like stopping right on top of it, and able to find that the ground is shaky. But, I mean, the other bit I thought, though, was just it feels like Chris Carter not being a bit flippant with the writing. So, hours after she promised, Scully goes to pick up Gibson Praise with Skinner. After a tense sort of standoff where they actually there's an ambiguity of, is this really Skinner and is this really Scully? Turns out it is, but anyway. So they drive out into the middle of the desert to get Gibson, who has broken his leg from falling over, which, Gibson, do you have osteoporosis? Should we have words with this?
It's bad terrain. I mean,
it's bad terrain.
Even when they were filming this episode, apparently they warned crew that there was a 1 in 20 chance of them being bitten by rattlesnakes. So, this is not a hospitable environment.
Fair.
Interestingly, apparently, Mitch Pileggi was just terrified in all his scenes that he would be the one to find the rattlesnake.
With good reason. So, hours later, Scully tries to complete the promise and goes to help Gibson. And, she gets Skinner to drive him out of there. Does she forget that she's just told Skinner to drive back in the car and left her out in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the night? And by coincidence, John Doggett shows up in a helicopter. And that's the only way she's going to get out of the situation.
It's not coincidence. He has been following her.
He has been following her, but how does he know if she is in the middle of a desert?
Because he's using the stealth helicopter.
Well,
the helicopters that only exist in X-Files episodes that make no sound until you notice them.
This is like GoldenEye.
Yeah.
The very
famous
end of GoldenEye, where the helicopter doesn't make noise until you see it. I don't know if I like or don't like the fact that they park right next to the actual UFO. There's like cloaks next to them.
I kind of want the almost outtake where Doggett manages to land on top of the UFO.
Like, what the hell is this? Yeah, let's just speed you along, John. We're just going to have to get you there a bit faster than you were prepared to go. Yeah, it's an invisible alien spaceship. Just get over it. We've had 5 of those.
Must be Tuesday.
As you said, like for the last episode, it's John Doggett's skepticism is too strong because really that scene in the school where they say, who's got eyes on Scully? And the alien bounty hunter walks in. And then Scully walks up to John Doggett. When that happens...
If you're being the ultra-skeptic, though, Doggett hasn't seen both Scullys clearly, so it could be it's another red-headed woman and they were mistaken.
It could be. But then again, you have got that guy who had his throat crushed who survived would have been able to say, is this the same woman you saw both times?
I'm so frustrated by that sequence purely because there are a lot of other men in that room.
And no one does anything.
Nobody does anything. No one rushes to help this guy being crushed. Do you think in any normal situation everyone would fall on the attacker?
Yeah.
And even when the attacker runs, everyone just kind of stands there like lemons and lets him pass.
It's a very big bunk room for that kind of quite intense chase to the point where she vanishes.
Well, added to the effect of people are most protective when they're defending children.
Yeah.
There are a load of little kids huddled in this room. When the attacker that's just crushed a man's throat has moved, you think all of these responsible adults would do anything to stop this attacker from getting near the kids.
Yeah.
It's natural instinct.
Yeah, and they don't. I mean, we also have the dark implication, I think, that Taya is actually dead, because I'm not sure she showed up after that.
The alien bounty hunter tends to kill people off before he replaces them, which probably mean that red-headed guy's not in a good way either, because there's at least one scene where it kind of infers the red-headed guy's an alien bounty hunter too.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ambiguity of him is it's not actually clear which stage he's an alien bounty hunter, because we know there are at least 6 other things.
Yeah, there's nothing to say that there's only one of them at work here anymore, or that this is the same alien bounty hunter we've been seeing throughout.
Which is a problem.
Because it kind of previously inferred that it was just him.
Yeah.
He's the only one that looks like Brian Thompson anyway.
Yeah.
He's a colonist, as far as we can tell, but maybe different if we believe Samantha.
Yeah. We can't trust Samantha, unfortunately. I know to David Duchovny and to everyone else, it seemed like a great idea in Colony to call him the alien bounty hunter. Because that basically invokes, in sci-fi terms, Boba Fett. It's kind of what you're invoking there.
Yeah, he's an alien who hunts bounties.
Yeah. The problem I had, and I'm pretty sure we talked about in Endgame, is you're alluding to an entire system of alien society, and I don't know if you want to go through the implications of that. For there to be bounties, you have to have a payment system, you have to have currencies, you have to have alien money. And when you start introducing that thing, and alien jails, and you start going, yeah, this is going to feel really weird now.
Mm.
But it's when they call him an alien bounty hunter and say that to Doggett, it's one of those, you probably should have thought up a different name for this guy in the interim and not just keep calling him what Samantha called him, given that she lied to you for basically every second you knew her. Did Scully even meet her? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
I don't think she ever... I think she only saw the dead body afterwards. I don't think she ever actually met Samantha or the Samantha clone.
No. It was a very, very bottle episode. They don't really move location in the episode. They only move between the school and the hospital.
Yeah, and I do think as well there should be more protests about those FBI agents when Scully and Doggett arrive. Because they sort of say, the only person who's been down there is a night nurse or something who's gone and checked in on them. And that wasn't the red-headed guy, that was the other guy who said that. And apparently it just gets lost in shuffle that, yeah, you probably have multiple people on your team who aren't telling the truth.
Yeah.
And that just drops by the wayside, given they say, oh, no one's gone into the room or come out of it. Well, where the hell is he? And the other thing that got me about it is they actively did lie about what happened because the Skinner alien bounty hunter is in a completely different room of the hospital. I'm not sure why he's in hiding and he's not just stormed through it like he would do normally, or, put a sheet over Gibson Praise and injected him with something to keep him comatose to take him down to the morgue or something.
Mm.
There are ways of doing this.
I think that the other thing to address is John Doggett's characterization through this, because it should be noted that the casting of John Doggett was one of the most controversial things that the X-Files has ever done, because fan base was so wedded to Mulder that they weren't prepared to accept a new main character. As a teenager, I really liked Mulder, and so taking away our ardent believer character who's very endearing, very positive, and putting such an intense skeptic in there. But it's ignoring the fact that Doggett actually has a load of redeemable features. You know, he's fiercely loyal, he's very dedicated, he will see things through to the end even if he doesn't understand them. And you get all these elements of his character right away from the start.
Yeah.
You know, Scully, like most of the fan base, is dead set on not liking him, but he's a likeable character.
He is. Well, the other thing that strikes me, and it's not noticeable as much now, but we kind of alluded to it before, and it will carry on through the most of Season 8, is Duchovny is still basically in the series. He's not in it as much because he's no longer the lead, but he's still not gone anywhere, which is very strange. So I think that's something that, no, I don't know if they didn't want to sort of play their hand too early or something, but you'd think there should have been a stress in the build-up to 8 that Dave Duchovny is no longer the main character. He will still appear in the bulk of the episodes.
You want to know some of my Doggety trivia?
Go on, then.
So, Robert Patrick was scared to death about doing a bad job because he was a large fan of the show before he started and realised the weight he would have it on his shoulders. And one of the few pieces of advice he got from Chris Carter was he just has to remain physically fit because it's such a involved, energetic role that he's kind of filling.
Just to break off for a minute there, this basically sort of sounds like the casting advice you'd get for Doctor Who, given that that's mostly running down corridors.
Yeah. But also, there were over 100 actors auditioned for the role of John Doggett.
Okay, I want to know. So, do we get a glimpse into the weird alternate universe, like when we almost got Christopher Walken as Han Solo?
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
I have 3 examples of people who were. Okay, one of them we actually mentioned previously. I don't know if you remember, a few seasons back we mentioned a character that was in a one-off episode who was also optioned to be John Doggett.
I think you did mention it.
I did mention it, yep.
I forgot who it was.
It was Bruce Campbell.
Oh, if only.
Unfortunately, he was considered, but he had a contractual obligation to another series, so couldn't do it. The series was called Jack of All Trades, so that's something that hasn't existed.
I'd have watched the hell out of these seasons of Bruce Campbell.
There was one who I don't know that well. He's called Lou Diamond Phillips. The only thing I can think of that I've kind of seen him in is I believe he's the Native American friend that Longmire has in Longmire.
In who?
Longmire. It's a American detective series. It's based on a series of books.
I'm just going to stare at you.
All right.
What the?
It's something I've seen and you have not.
I did not know this even existed.
But the one I thought you'd be interested is an actor called Hart Bochner, who I had to look up, but you do know him from something rather major.
I'll say the name rings a bell and I can't think who it is.
He's Ellis in Die Hard.
Wow.
Scully, booby.
Oh, what a choice. Oh, wow. But he's here to stay, and he's on to an antagonistic bent with Kersh. We didn't mention Kersh coming back. Kersh is back. Who saw that one coming? Actually, we saw that one coming, but still. It's interesting, though, that I remembered Kersh being more of a presence up to this point, and basically he was in there for 5 episodes of season 6, and then basically
it's not like Skinner, who's there all the time.
We haven't seen him for absolutely ages, and he's back now, and he's been promoted over Skinner just to make life difficult.
Mm.
And he's also friends with Doggett, and there's the weird tension, because we don't know quite what Kersh's deal is. Triangle is a weird episode.
Mm.
But Triangle set out various people as being, at that point in time, as being allied or against the conspiracy.
Mm.
So Cancerman was the SS operative. Spender was second in command or something?
Yeah. And I think Kersh was working in the engine room.
Yeah, and Kersh just wanted to go back to Jamaica.
Mm.
And the insinuation was, if that was real, that Kersh wasn't involved with anything. If it was a figment of Mulder's imagination, he doesn't think Kersh is responsible for anything for some reason.
Yeah.
This episode, though, is weird.
That's an interesting point.
Skinner thinks Dog has been set up to fail. And that's certainly how the final meeting with Kersh goes. The assignment to the X-Files, I feel a bit weakened given Kersh doesn't say, oh, you're now being demoted to the X-Files or something.
It's an interesting different background to give Doggett now I'm thinking about it, because you have Mulder has always been the social pariah.
Yeah.
Scully was just kind of up and coming. She didn't really have a name for herself.
No, but she was going to.
But Doggett is a very highly respected, very, very successful FBI agent who has wound up in this position. So, he comes with the baggage of having friends in the FBI and not just people who think he's a lunatic.
Yeah. The old friendship with Kersh is weird, given that as far as we know, and I think you found the production note, is that Kersh gave Gibson Fraser's file to Doggett.
Yes, apparently this was something that Robert Patrick was curious about because it never said it in the original scripts, and Kim Manners refused to tell him, so it became a long-standing mystery. And apparently even on one of the DVD commentaries that's done by Kim Manners and Robert Patrick, he kind of mocks him and said, it's because I didn't trust you at the time, I didn't go on to give you this information and all the rest of it. But yeah, according to the production team, it's supposed to be Kersh. Apparently, I think there's something that infers it more heavily down the line.
Okay.
But this is what they had in their mind the entire time.
Okay. I would say it's an odd one because our number of players who can possibly have done it are so low, because it's Skinner, you'd think would just say directly to Scully and wouldn't tell Doggett. The alien bounty hunter doesn't want to involve anyone who doesn't have to.
The syndicate's not there anymore.
Yeah, Krychek is not going to bother with this kind of thing. Cancerman's not around. Yeah, there's Kersh.
You're right when you put it that way. Unless it's an unseen character, it can't be anything else.
Mr. X2.
That's what I was thinking.
Deeper throat.
If there is another deep throat in the wings that it was waiting to wheel out.
Yeah, and that's interesting because it was something that we should probably Requiem and Marita again, is that Mulder hasn't had an informant for an astonishing long time now, because Marita crashed and burned so fast and was basically so useless. And they've never replaced that role in the series.
No.
Because at this point, we don't know how much Kersh actually knows. I think it was always unclear if he was actually tied into anything, because we know he also, like Skinner, has had Cancerman hang around his office a few times. We have no idea what happened there, because presumably Cancerman has to have done like to Skinner, is to have given him some kind of show of authorization or ID to prove he can be there, you can't throw him out the building, and you have to listen to what he has to say.
Yeah.
But what he would have told Kersh, I don't know, and how involved Kersh is in the conspiracy, because we know that Skinner ultimately didn't know anything.
True.
He knew enough to be told, you have to cover this up, but he didn't know how anything worked.
And he didn't necessarily believe to Mulder's extent per se, he knew there was something.
Yeah, they were up to something, and it was in his best interest to not let it leak out. Mulder had to be pushed away from it, or evidence had to be shut down, or just manipulated away.
Yeah, true.
Not the most auspicious start to a new season, but then again, they often aren't, really. I think it's like the pilot and Little Green Men, and maybe the beginning are like the only good ones.
Yeah, that's fair.
Game 6 Extinction was just catastrophe, really.
And it's not a stick to measure things on, because we've had ones before where the conspiracy seemed weak at the start of the season, but picked up steam. Like Colony and Endgame, like Patient X and the Red and the Black. They're all mid-season conspiracy ones.
Yes. I mean, I think the difference here is that the conspiracy is still going. We don't understand how it's still going, because what is anyone's plan at this point?
Hopefully it'll all become clear. I can't remember what our next conspiracy block is, but when we get to it, maybe we'll have a better idea of the shape it's going to take this time.
I will reiterate, though you could actually sort of say we finally looped it back in, of, how important Mulder is to the project. Project's gone, but Mulder apparently is of sufficient interest to pick him up, even though he's only of interest because of the black oil infection, because of Tunguska, which is after the point when Cancerman said, how important he is to the project.
True.
Do we have anything else for this episode, or shall we skedaddle?
I think we should skedaddle. We've talked long enough.
Well, we have to be more patient. Or patience. Patience is next week. And Roadrunners.
I'll accept that segue.
Yeah, I tried.
You tried.
I tried. So yes, John Doggett season continues with 2 Mulder-free episodes, I think.
I'm pretty sure they are. 2 Monster of the Week episodes.
2 Monster of the Week episodes. So yeah, we're going to throw him into the deep end, say, hey, remember when Scully met Toombs? Well, you get to meet something. In the meantime, if you'd like to get hold of us, our email address is thingsargettingstrange42@gmail.com.
You can also find us on social media, and please do hook me up if you'd like me to promote anything X-Files related at the start of this show, be it conventions or other fan events, zines, whatever you've got going at the moment. You can find us on Twitter and Tumblr, @GetStrange42. You can find us on Mastodon, @GetStrange42@universedon.com. or on Facebook, where you can find us by searching for Things Are Getting Strange and X-Files Rewatch podcast. Also, if you're not sick of my increasingly dwindling voice right now, you can also catch me live on Twitch TV. I have a stream where I'm playing whatever I'm currently playing on PlayStation 5. This is currently Danganronpa 2, Cyberpunk, and hopefully by the time this episode airs, I will have started on Silent Hill 2 as well, replaying the old game before the new one comes out. My main stream is live Mondays and Wednesdays at 8pm GMT and Saturdays at 5pm GMT on Twitch TV under the name AdverseCamber42. You can also check my AdverseCamber42 Twitter for just random updates if I'm going to pop on and play on any other times than those ones advertised.
We have a Patreon, patreon.com/Things Are Getting Strange, where you can find our Let's Play of the first X-Files game, where Craig Grunwald dies an awful lot because we don't know what we're doing.
We got to the end eventually.
After a lot of restarts. And there's also our review of Goblins and Whirlwind by Charles Grant, and soon to be followed by our review of Ground Zero by Kevin Jedson, our review of Mulder and Scully by Catatonia, a song that David Duchovny has heard of but never heard.
And also origin for the name of this podcast.
And that too. Our theme music is Envisioned by Kevin MacLeod. You can find it on Combotech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, please remember,
it's too hot for this BS.